And here we go. Hello, everybody. We are going to the Motion Design Hotline.
We're here.
Yeah, we've arrived. Boop. That was pretty quick. I'm one of your hosts, Evan Abrams, joined, as usual, by our other host, Kyle Hamrick. How you doing, Kyle?
Good. You know, it is as usual, but the last show was unusual in that I was not there because I was not here, so I was not there.
And this week is also unusual because it's Friday, so there's
right. Yeah,
there's
this is a very special episode.
Yeah, Kyle, you've returned from wandering the desert. You've been to NAB. You have the National Association of Broadcasters, I guess.
That is correct. That is correct.
Which sounds pretty lame, but it's a good time in fabulous Las Vegas. I don't know. How was the show? Tell the people about, if they don't know what it is, stuff.
Yeah. Well, NAB, as you so aptly clarified, is the National Association of Broadcasters, which has existed for a very long time. By the way, excuse me, folks, I do have a cough drop in my mouth. I've spent the last week in the desert in heavily air-conditioned areas, which also, because it's Vegas, involves walking through a lot of smoky casino lobbies, which I hate. And it doesn't matter how many air purifiers they put up. They all, and talking nonstop. So I have a cough drop in my mouth. You're just going to have to deal with that today.
It's true.
Anyway. Whoop.
Yeah.
NAB is just it's a whole situation. It takes over the entirety of the Las Vegas Convention Center, which is a very large space, possibly a larger space than you can even conceive, even when you've been to it a couple times. You cannot possibly imagine how many booths are required to talk about camera gear and software and cloud storage things, but you could do pretty much anything related to media production of any kind. You can come listen to me talk about After Effects, or you can buy a broadcast NFL truck.
Sure.
And anywhere in between. So,
yeah, it's great. It's a wonderful show. It's a good time down there. Oh, and hello to people of the chat. So Beverly, this is Beverly's first
joining us. Yeah,
Motion Design Hotline. But enjoy the poster. That is a Japanese poster for James Bond Thunderball. Confusingly. Why do I have that? I don't know. I was a weird kid. I got that in high school.
Because it looks cool. That's the answer.
That is why. It's a very graphical. I watched way too much James Bond, which is why I enjoy title design. So it was very formative in propelling me here, which is why I kind of keep it on the wall. But yeah. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about today, though, Kyle, we won't rehash all of the stories from the NAB, but this is
you though. To help people understand why they might want to go next year.
Yeah, but we're gonna gab about NAB, and we're gonna
it's
grab
a whole grab bag.
Exactly, it's a grab bag of NAB Gab, and we are going to look at some of the new features that are coming to After Effects and Premiere for video people. We're video people. This is where we solve people's video problems. If you have problems,
presumably you are video peoples as well.
We have to assume. So if this is the type of thing, you have problems in video apps, you let us know, and we're going to try to solve them on this show. And if you have specific problems, you can use like a form that's down in the links, and then we'll get into it.
You ask us a question, we make it into a show.
Exactly. But today we are looking at what is new and upcoming, because as new features come out, you are then able to exploit those features to do different types of work or to expand your capacities, or it just makes stuff that you already do generally a lot faster.
Yeah.
Anyway, the After Effects... Yeah, the After Effects team, it's a tight team over there, and by which I mean there's not as many people working on it as you might think, but they work very hard to make these things happen, and we like to kind of celebrate and look at them. So that's what we're going to do today. Anything else we do before the show goes?
That seems like all the stuff we're supposed to talk about. I don't know. I feel like I haven't been here for 6 months. So
I know this is true. We're kind of off our game. But I'm going to cut over to my screen. Let's start with Evan, and let's look at one of the things that I'm excited about happening in After Effects.
Well, let me say before we dive into features, should we talk a little bit more about NAB as an event? and what happens there, aside from Adobe stuff.
I guess so. That's true.
Okay. Okay.
Kyle, we're gonna go to Kyle's screen.
All right.
Let's see.
So, yeah, I've been suffering with this NAB thing flashing at me for the last several minutes, so now you have to also.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's great that there's this site that looks cool, but boy, when this is an entire monitor of half of your face while you're trying to pretend to pay attention to the other thing, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's not great.
Anyway, if you find this interesting and want to go in the future, you can look for NAB Show. It'll be nabshow.com, so you can find it again in the future. I'm going to close that because it's flashing at me and annoying me. I do, however, have just a few pictures to kind of help you understand the scale of what we're talking about. So this is the last day of the show. So this is the least busy that you will ever see it. Okay. When you go on the busiest day, this is just like
Whoa.
people everywhere.
Kyle, that Ross company is down the street from me.
Oh yeah.
I could go down and talk to Ross Video today if I wanted to.
There was a great moment where I think there are a lot of folks here from all around the world, right? There are companies from everywhere, there are visitors from everywhere, and someone saw the Ross Dress for Less that exists somewhere slightly off the strip in Vegas, which is a discount clothing store. And I think there was a little bit of confusion about the two, and that was an amusing moment. So this is just one of the halls. This is where all the software related stuff is. And I don't know if you can really get a scale for just how far back this goes, but it's very far. And you can see that, companies have booths that are the size of your house in this, that are just full of demos and people talking about things. And if you look at this red strip back here that you can see, that would, of course, be the Adobe booth, which looks like this. They have this big thing here and a couple sort of presentation stages. You can see there's kind of a thing here where they're talking to people. You can see there's another one back here where they're presenting things, and there's one of those over here. There's a huge screen. And there's all these little pods where this is one of my favorite things about being able to do this. You can go and talk to the people from the After Effects team about these new features. They will show you the new features, and you can ask them questions about pretty much anything. And the great thing is, like, the whole team, not the whole team, most of the team is there. And so if the person who's standing there right now doesn't know the answer to your question, like I watched this happen. Brian, one of the engineers, was about to show me something, and then a few guys came up and they were asking about media replacement in Mogerts, but they primarily spoke Spanish. And there happened to be my friend Dacia, who was right there, and Brian was like, "Dacia, you're the perfect person for this." And it's just great to see that kind of responsiveness. And only because I captured, this is the perfect B-roll moment right here. Of a few of the After Effects team. One of them asked a question from somebody else, and they did the perfect B-roll, like pointing and nodding, and they were all like, "Oh yeah, yeah." So I thought it was a good moment to capture. And of course, the Substance team is there too. So Substance has been creating all kinds of great stuff. We've been showing some of this off. You can create great 3D stuff that you can then bring into After Effects. And then, of course, you're in Las Vegas with everything that means. So you can do things like walk around the Cosmopolitan and visit the weird dog statues, like I obligatorily do every year. Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it brings good fortune.
Yeah. And then crucially, look, this maybe you feel like walking around a convention center floor isn't that interesting. It is if you want to see camera gear and all that stuff. But one of the best reasons to go to these things is because all the people from all the different corners of this industry are there. And there are some specific parties. I'll go ahead and just turn this off and roll it down. One of the things that happens is this big MoGraph meetup party. Why am I showing it like that? There's Luis, being Luis. You may, if you're in the MoGraph industry at all, you may recognize a few faces from here. This is a big party that happens every year. It's free. You just sign up for it and you show up. And then for about 3 hours, you hang out with all kinds of people from around the MoGraph industry. And it's great. It's crazy and crowded, but This is where you like become friends with people. Evan and I literally met at NAB several years ago, and that's how this started. So
Yeah, yeah. It could happen to you too. You could end
yes, exactly.
you
Um,
could end up doing weird shows with people you met at the conference.
exactly.
But
Um,
it's pretty useful because a lot of our career is pretty isolating, and we
exactly.
interface with people who don't do our type of work, and then you're the one
And then you
person in the
can.
office. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously you're like, "Oh, just go hang out in Vegas." But the thing about NAB is that if you can exist in this place, it's all effectively free. Like
Right.
obviously you need to get yourself there and have lodging and eat, but the event, the NAB show itself, don't pay for that. You just have to sign up to literally any vendor's like email list, and then you can get a free exhibit pass.
Mm,
All of these evening events are free. You just have to like go talk to them and say, "Yes, I'm a customer of your product," and then you'll end up at the party, hanging out with people from around the industry.
hmm.
So, unlike a lot of the other conferences that cost, $1,000 or more to attend these conferences, if you can just be here, you can do all of this and meet all these people, see all the new gear or software or whatever it is that interests you. So, I just want to offer that plug. Obviously, Vegas is not the cheapest place to exist, though it can be if you know how to do that, or, get an Airbnb with a couple of friends or something like that. So I just wanted to give that plug. It is a great place to meet people from all around. And you
Hmm.
can go hang out with any of your motion design heroes or your video editing heroes, or go talk to the people that make the products that you use. So
Yeah.
that's a great thing to do.
I'll say, like, if you're not into like drinking and gambling and stuff like that, there's a lot of Vegas to enjoy that isn't that.
Absolutely. I
Go
went
to the
hiking in the mountains yesterday.
yeah, go to the pinball museum. Go to the go karting. These are good
Yes.
things. Like,
Yes.
there's a lot of Vegas for everybody. Well, yeah. Anyway, let's get
Now onto the features.
now we get to it. All right. So,
I do have just in case
oh,
before we actually look at our software, I do have these two web pages up. If you want to see like a full listing, because we probably won't touch all of these, you can just look for what's new in Premiere Pro, what's new in After Effects, and Adobe helpfully lists all of these for you. Um, so you can see all of these and even click through and see little demos. But of course, we're about to show you those demos that are going to be so much cooler, right?
well, and hopefully to kind of contextualize some of it.
Mhm.
So, sort of the things that are coming to After Effects, the two for me anyway that are kind of the flashiest. Well, we can change the transparency grid. That's nice. But I am interested in the changes to the environment light, and then changes to the way nulls work.
Mhm.
So if you are, we'll say, if you are perhaps familiar with how
Winged
nulls
Evan
work.
heads?
Yeah, if you're familiar with biblically accurate Evan heads, so this is this is all
I like
done with
how like nonchalant you are about this too.
yeah, yeah, whatever. So nulls are sort of a holder of data. So maybe that's the way. Maybe we should start there.
Yeah.
Nulls hold information. So if I make a new null object, it just produces an object out in the world. It is, in this case, bounded by its properties, which it holds transform properties like any other layer, but it has no other information. We tend to use them as controls, right? So we'll use this layer to control another layer. It'll control position. We'll link a bunch of layers to it. You're usually parenting things to it. The movement of a null will often be through expressions controlling something else. But the big thing, because it's a layer, it is usually position defined as where it lives in your frame, which means we are going to start talking about things like to comp and from comp, because if I have, say, a new solid and I'm going to make this, say, 500 by 500 pixels, the way things that live on this layer are understood is layer relative, meaning the information on here is in a different place. So just
By the way,
hypothetically,
we've done a whole episode about this if the very
yeah,
concept seems confusing right now, which it kind of is.
yeah, it is. We're not gonna sugarcoat it. It is.
But this makes it a lot less confusing.
Yeah. So if I put a ramp on this, right? So I'm going to put the start of the gradient at 0, 0. I'm going to put the end of the gradient at 500 by 500. 0, 0, according to this layer, is the top corner of the layer, and 500 by 500 is the bottom corner of the layer. The place where this lives, 0, 0, means up in this corner of the frame and the bottom corner of the frame. So if, for example, I wanted the position of this to control the position of that, and I were to simply twirl these things open, go into the effects, twirl into the gradient, there's the start of the ramp, there is the position. If I point the position of this, right, to be the position of that, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense, because 980 by 280 is over there. 0, 0 is here. You see how it kind of maps together in this weird way? If this lived up here, well, then they would perfectly align with each other, but they don't, and that's not how that works. So what we're going to be doing instead is we need a little go-between, and the way things used to go between each other was a little expression called toComp, meaning we transform the information from one place to another. It's a lot of expressions. It's kind of annoying, right? Let's stop doing that. We're going to right-click on anything that we want to do this. We're going to come down to Keyframe Assistant, Null Controllers for Positional Points. Boop. It has now created null 13. Hey, null 13. If we twirl into here, we're going to see the start of the ramp. We see that it has been given this expression, a very elegant expression. I suspect this is a Colombo creation, but I can't prove that.
I think you're correct about that.
I can't prove it, but it feels like it's got their fingerprints
all
over it.
Flavor.
Yeah. So this null lives here. Now, if we call up the position of that null, well, it's not red. It's not being modified. It is there. But as I move that, you see that it's working correctly. That if I move it over here, well, yeah, that is where the gradient ramp thinks the start is. And if I then move the layer over there, look at that. It's like a window into that world. Because all of this is doing that transformation of where this is to where that is. If I were to scale this, notice that the start of the ramp changes because the scaling affects where the things are. We've effectively made this property frame relative instead of layer relative. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Now this is just a position of a thing. So what else could be a position of a thing? How about a path? A path is positions of things, right? Again, and the paths live on the layer. Therefore, and we're going to do, I think next week on Wednesday, we're going to go deeper into this and do a lot more things because we only have an hour.
All the way in.
Yeah, we're gonna get in. I just wanted to show a couple of fun uses of this. If you're thinking like, Evan, that's pretty technical and boring.
Yeah, why do I care about this, Evan?
Get away from me, Evan, with your nasty thoughts. Okay, well, here's some thoughts that are fine. Here is my head.
Yeah, this is what you're offering for people who might have been alarmed by what you just talked about.
Yeah, so this is like a normal thing that we do in After Effects. Here are a couple of wings, right? So if we look into here, we've got a couple of wings and they've got puppet pins on them. And puppet pins, if you've never used them or you're not totally familiar with them, if you stick a puppet pin on a layer, again, this is a thing that lives on a layer, and the thing that you put on the layer, bloop, 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 blop, you know, it is stretching and deforming it, but where does it live? Well, it lives on the layer, right? So if you wanted two things with puppet pins to talk to each other, well, that's kind of difficult to do, actually. And that's because this layer lives in its own space and this layer lives in its own space. And so if the two are on different layers, they're not going to talk to each other particularly well. So if I say have this, I want to pin my ears a little bit, I'm going to put a pin in each of my ears. I'm going to put a pin maybe up here.
So you can wiggle those as well, kind of Dumbo style maybe?
For sure. So like if I were to try to stretch this and I want it to basically, you see how the wings are kind of flapping, right? So they're flapping along, they're having a good time. But if I wanted, say, one part of one mesh to interact with one part of another mesh, well, this point would need to be controlled by something. So let's go in, let's find that point. So we're going to find this, and I'm going to say, hey, Keyframe Assistant, null controllers for positional, please, bloink. So now this is basically taken that control and I've taken it outside of the layer. Okay, that's nice. I'm just going to name this ear control because that'll be helpful for me. And here is another thing that is hanging out, and it has been locked to a bunch of other systems that are happening. Well, what happens if I just go ahead and I parent my ear control to that? And we're going to see how that goes. So as it moves away, notice the side of my head is helpfully deforming now. I have linked the two things together so that the mesh is now being deformed by an external object. That is very helpful. So that is hopefully good. So for example, here's another example of why you would want to do that. You have arms, you have shoulders. The arm must connect to the shoulder must move where the top of the arm is going. Therefore, you should probably link those two pins together if they live on different layers. So there's that. And in keeping with why would I want to externalize the puppet pins at all, right? Well, by sticking them on nulls, we have actually created a little FK forward kinematic relationship between them. So these wing
easier to control.
Exactly. And so these are just rotating. So the tip of the wing is parented to this part of the wing, is parented to this part of the wing. And so as I move, rotating those joints, they are producing this flapping motion, which if you attempted to do this with inverse kinematics, which you can definitely do if you roll through and use something like Duick, etc., you'll get there, right? But it's a little bit easier to do something like wing movement, which is we sort of understand through its rotational movements rather than the position of its parts. It's just easier to make naturalistic flapping in this incredibly naturalistic thing.
I don't like what's happening to your face there. I find it extremely alarming.
Well, there's that too. But again, because they are relative to each other, right? Like the position of these things like lives in space, right? So you could dampen them with things. You could use expressions to kind of make them, they understand where they are more relative to each other. So I got another example of this that I really enjoy. Well, what else needs to be relative to each other? Can I interest you in
terrified to find out?
Well, can I interest you in three-dimensional objects?
Oh, you may.
So this will not terrify people. This will be a calm and nice loop that we can just enjoy kind of staring at for a while. That's one of my favorite things to make in the world. I like to produce hypnotic kind of loops. And in this way, just like that original example, we've got a gradient, and the gradient is following exactly the start and end of that gradient is where these 3D things are. The position of those 3D things is controlled by their orbiting around a central null. This one in here, which is we'll say this is the axis through which these things rotate. And because you can then take your gradient things, say, turn that into a null. Okay, well, wherever that null is in frame relative space, if I then make that null 3D, it still has a frame relative space, even though it understands its position three-dimensionally. It's a third transformation, right? From the world to the frame to the layer, all done without doing any math or writing anything. And what's really fun about this, I'm going to take my camera and I'm going to look somewhere else. All of those points, because again, it's the frame that they care about. It's in a different part of the frame, and it's perfectly computed as for where that is. So you can create these beautiful backgrounds that will remain locked to the thing. And it's just a lot of fun. So you're going to find things like fractals, because a fractal has a position in the world. So you can lock that somewhere. Paths you can stick places. Like you're just getting, this is sort of a very abstracted way of doing it. But if you work in visual effects, locking things to the frame versus locking them to the world, and the world to the frame, and these things have to talk to each other. It'll make your head spin. So this is going to prevent that from happening because you don't really need to particularly understand a lot of the expression that is happening here. Where are you?
Which is kind of the whole point of this feature. It's making it easier so that you don't have to be an insane expressions wizard like some two people that I know to make this happen.
But yeah, like, and you can see like it's fairly elegant the way it comes together, right? We're taking it from here, we're putting it there, but I will always forget the order of the things. I will always forget this stuff. You don't need to save it anywhere. It's already it's a feature of the thing. So, and if you do dissect it, you will enjoy a little bit of extra insider information about how the stuff works, and maybe it'll help you to make your own kind of modifications to this kind of idea. But hopefully this kind of clears up. It's something that people like myself who deal with a lot of this problem are very interested and excited in when this happens, because this is solving problems that we have been working around for a long time. Now we don't have to work around them, right? So will fewer people watch videos about 2Comp? Sure. But now they probably don't have to. So that's probably a net good.
So this is a great example of a feature that is exciting for people who've been using After Effects for a long time because they understand what this is and why it makes it easier. Which is kind of a good segue to one of the biggest updates that we just got that, again, like you kind of only understand why it's relevant if you've been using After Effects, and that's what they're calling high performance preview playback. So when you're, Evan's been previewing his animations here, and up until just a few days ago, the way After Effects works is it loads all of these frames into your RAM and it previews that. And if you run out of RAM, you run out of preview. And that's when you need to start decreasing your resolution or things like that. But now it uses both your RAM and space on your hard drive. And so you will not be limited by the amount of RAM. You don't need to have as much RAM in your machine to use After Effects as well. To be clear, you should still have, enough. And Evan, if you maybe want to hop into the preferences real quick, just to point out where you can allocate the RAM to different apps. The biggest reason you're going to need RAM still, just like before, is if you want to have more than one app open, if you have a browser window open while you're working. And specifically, if you're working with the imported 3D models, those do consume some RAM to load them in. But I literally watched the Adobe team. They opened this up and allocated 1 gig of RAM to their After Effects, and then they were working just fine until to the point that they forgot that they had turned it down, and then they went to load a 3D model later and was like, oh, oops. So this like revolutionizes the way your previews work. And, a few of the team members have been sort of joking, but not really, like you could probably lower the recommended specs for After Effects because of this. So that's pretty huge. But again, it's the kind of thing like, unless you know sort of the pain that it has been previously, it doesn't even matter to you. And that's kind of great. It just makes it better.
Yeah. So you do just want to make sure that you're giving over enough space.
Yes, of course. Give it some. In both places, you need to make sure that you're tuned properly.
Yeah, and it also sort of belies something that maybe people don't consider when they're buying hard drives. You want the hard drive to be quickly accessible, and there are speeds of hard drives.
And that, crucially, that's why this exists now. Hard drives are finally fast enough to enable this.
Yeah, so you want those kind of solid state, quick access. Yeah. Tapped right into the motherboard things, not an external hard drive. That's not where you want to be at, because then you're limited by the wire, and that's sad.
Were you going to say anything about maintain workspace?
I was not, no.
Okay, let's say that real quick, because this is another thing for folks who've used After Effects before. This is very exciting for a long-time After Effects nerd. What normally happens, again, until, like 4 or 5 days ago here, if Evan made a project and he sent it to me and I open it up, it's going to look the way that Evan has his workspace set up, not necessarily the way I like my workspace set up. But if you want, now there is a little checkbox in your preferences so that when you open someone else's project, it will maintain your workspace.
Do you know what else will happen if you open up somebody else's file? The default of what they call their solids will change, and then yours will say salads for about 3 years.
Or solids. Yep, exactly. maybe that's part of the reason I always name mine salads.
Yeah,
You got to stay healthy.
It's a cool prank. But yeah, that way it looks the way you work with it, not the way the other person works with things, with their nasty windows wherever they think they should go.
And it's a little thing, but if you're working with others a lot, if you're doing a lot of trading off projects, the time that you're saving of having to go up and apply your own workspace every time you open someone else's project is really nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's other features, but Kyle, we want to go over to your screen because you got stuff going on.
We're going to talk about some of the new Premiere features, and honestly, some of them are really, really exciting. So in both of these apps,
Val's back on the launch screen.
Well, yeah. So I did this on purpose. When you're on the home screen of these apps, the first time that you've opened this version, it will show you this. But if you want to see it again, the little gift box up in the corner will actually bring this up. And just to say it, if you happen to be looking at this in After Effects, the second one right here happens to be the free Intro to After Effects course that might have been created by someone you know.
Yeah.
And it's right there. So check that out if you're still learning After Effects, because you can learn it for free from Adobe with project files and everything. Anyway, this is a great place to come and see what the new features are. And when you click like the little try now on any of these, it will actually take you through a little step-by-step project that was set up specifically to help you learn the features. So the thing that they are making the biggest deal about is called Generative Extend, and I'm going to take a look at that in a minute. The thing that I am the most excited about is called Media Intelligence, okay? And there's some other good stuff in here too. Color management just got a lot easier, and then there's caption translation. So I'm going to quickly poke around at almost all of these. I'm not going to dive into color management because truthfully, I haven't had a chance to play with this yet. And I don't think that I have a good log color clip that I can definitely show right now. Those are a little hard to find in stock photo sites. So the short version is previously when you opened log footage that had been shot raw, you need to know what settings to apply to it to make it look not weird and gray and washed out. But now Premiere is doing a pretty good job of guessing what that is supposed to be. So that it helps bridge that weird thing where you kind of need to know what it is before you can even progress. So that's very welcome, in my opinion. Let me go ahead and close the home screen here, which you can always reopen with the little house that gets you home, and then gift box if you want to see those new things, right? Okay, so I have, let's go ahead and get rid of that NAB thing. This is actually the demo project for Generative Extend. You may have seen this. They've been talking about this since Adobe Max. It's been available in beta, and now it's in the full release version. And the short version here is that you can use the generative AI features to add a few more frames onto a shot if you are short of those. And so this is one of the demo projects here, and you've got this shot where you've got the astronaut looking around, but the shot was just a little too short, and so we have a gap here in our edit. And we would love to be able to have this be longer, but it doesn't exist. See, I'm trying to pull it out. There's nothing there. However, boom, oh, really kills the moment. Let's come down right here at the bottom of our toolbar. It's kind of a little sparkly looking thing because it's magical, I guess. And if you just click on that, yep, okay, it gives you a little thing, okay. I will say, so right now, this doesn't, you can do this for free, essentially. At some point in the future, to be determined when, this will be costing you the AI credits that you have in your account. That doesn't necessarily mean it costs you money, just that you do have a set number of credits so that people don't abuse these and like turn it into a, content factory on the backs of Adobe.
Well, that is true, but
that means.
It's also important to remember that AI has an incredible compute load, and a lot of this stuff is not happening device side; it's happening server side, and so it simply is irresponsible to have infinite people, you know, evaporating infinite swimming pools. Having limits is
for a variety of
responsible.
reasons. And yeah, there's a lot of I have some other ethical thoughts that we'll be talking about in a minute here, but yeah, every time that you do this, this demo right now comes at a cost of energy, which is a thing that you should be mindful of, pretty please. However, in a case like this, if you have been an editor for very long, you've definitely run into a case where you needed 5 more frames of something that just don't exist. Okay. Um, and with this feature right here, so I don't know how well you can see it, but what would normally just be my little kind of red edit bracket here, and I'm gonna try to zoom in. I don't feel like I've done that before on this. Does that work for
Whoa.
you? Does that work?
I think it's working.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can't see anymore because this covered my entire screen. Uh,
Perfect.
so you see how this has like a little sparkle over it? So all you have to do is just drag that and bring it over, and now it
Oh,
will think for a second.
now see the bummer is that even though we've zoomed in on your screen, now the location of your mouse doesn't make any sense. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
screen
Okay.
sharing problem. But
All right.
anyway, we saw it go, you know, change, so that's something.
Yeah, well, we're back down to normal now. So I dragged it over, and what it will do is it'll take a second to upload this clip, analyze it, and then create these frames for us, okay? And I will say, from what I'd say an ethical standpoint, in this particular example, I think that this is fine, okay? We shot this. This is a thing. We didn't actually shoot this, but you know, in this scenario, we
Hmm.
shot this thing. This is already fiction, right? And then maybe it was just a little, you know, the camera got bumped or something like that. On set, we thought we had it, but now we don't, and we really need that little bit more. Personally, with the environmental concerns aside, I feel totally fine with this because this is already fiction, right? And I don't feel like this is too different from us spending the time to manipulate this in After Effects or something to create those frames manually, which I've done many times and is quite painstaking.
Right. Yeah, because functionally we might be slowing it down. We might be
Yeah, exactly.
boomeranging it back a little bit. Like you
Yeah.
can invent what didn't happen.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't think that this is accomplishing anything that's too different from what we might do in more difficult ways, and probably in ways that often would not look as good anyway. So I think creating a few frames like this, I don't have a problem with that, aside from the huge environmental costs, which is definitely a thing that you should be extremely mindful of. Yeah, this is good TV. Watching a little circle fill up.
Well, and I think that's the other
Almost
thing that people sort of need to be sort of aware of. So someone is saying, "Can you do to the front of a clip?" I think you can do like either end of
yeah.
it. It is going to try to understand what the clip is, and
Yep.
then based on what exists next to it. So if you've ever done optical flow,
Hmm.
um, basically frame blending, think of it as a similar idea of that. Just
Yeah.
that could only happen between frames. This can
Right.
happen after frames.
Yep.
But yeah.
So yes, you absolutely could. And one thing I want to point out is now that that's created, it does specifically tell you
Oh.
this portion right here is AI generated. So it's very clearly labeled. There's no kind of murkiness there. Um, so let's watch it together. I don't know what this is going to look like. I assume fine, but remember, right here there was just no clip. So let's see how that looks. Works fine. I mean, I think that sells. Personally, I wish, like, from an editing standpoint, I feel like it'd be more impactful if we like ended the shot here, but this is how this demo project is. So, but it's
Yeah.
not particularly interesting, but it's just kind of him continuing to exist. We see, you look at this little thing, the wind speed back here, and he's moving, the strap is blowing in the wind. Like, I think it sells pretty well. And this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 30 frames, about a
Yeah.
second here. Um, Sometimes you just need that, and I think that's pretty good here. Now, I want to point out the other example here, And I've seen this done in live demos and some other things. And honestly, this is where we can all make our own decisions. And, there's a lot of context that goes into this. But again, as someone who's done a lot of video editing, I've encountered this many times in my life. See what happens there? So we've got, our end screen coming up, but our talent, unfortunately, he got like a little squirrely there, and he looks off camera as we're fading away. So one of the other suggested uses for this, and again, I'm just going to tell you my opinion, but this is one of those times where you might take this clip and cut it right here, and then use Generative Extend to give yourself those, 10, 15 frames right here. I'm not going to do it right now just because I don't think it's fun to watch it process. But that is the other suggested use. And absolutely, there's a lot of times where that's going to be very helpful. And in something like this, I don't think that that's that bad necessarily. This is a product video. And it's just, the guy blew it because he looked off camera. And
blew
it. Same thing. If the camera got bumped or there was a bug that flew through, or like sometimes things happen and you just don't have another take of that. And to be able to fix it is great. So that sometimes the only other solution would have been like, well, we just need to fade out earlier. And sometimes that's just not ideal. So you can take a clip that already exists and just trim it in, and then use Generative Extend to fill that back out with new made up stuff. But crucially, you're filling it in with new made up stuff. And in this case, you're pitching a product. Again, like this is kind of fiction already, but if you're doing this with an interview, you are now creating something that did not happen. And personally, I think that's where this starts getting very touchy. And even if you think, hey, that sounds fine. I have a friend that does a lot of historical work, and that feels pretty clear cut to me, right? You don't want to add 10 more frames to that World War II clip because that did not happen. These are just tools. You use them how you want, but I think that we should try to agree on some standards, right?
Yeah, and like there's a lot of operator side stuff that like, oh well, this is footage of an accident that I'm going to be sending to the insurance company. Oh well, what if I just add some more footage at the end of that, and maybe it'll make my case a little bit better or stuff like that. Like you got to be. There's not a lot of ethics taught in film school, I don't think. So we all kind of gotta live with each other and not do crazy things with the toys that we have available.
So I will point out. To Adobe's credit, keep in mind that their generative models are based on material that they had on Adobe stock or had otherwise licensed. Unlike a lot of the models that just scraped everything that was available on the internet. So there is that aspect. And Adobe is trying to be responsible about content credentials so that you know who created a thing and whether it was created by AI or not. And as you saw, that thing that I created, granted, once you export this, it doesn't necessarily have that same indicator, but it's very clearly labeled that that portion of that clip is AI generated. And if you're exporting with content credentials, I haven't gotten into that too much yet, but you should have the ability to say that that is the case. This contains something that was AI generated.
Yeah, and so is it in AE? I don't believe it is. We can't be doing clips in there.
It has no generative features at all. There are a lot of heavy air quotes AI features that have been in AE for close to a decade at this point. Like RotoBrush. And content aware fill. Those are based on Sensei, which is Adobe's learning computer model before we were all calling it AI because a bunch of tech bros had to try to sell it.
Anyway, but yeah, we don't want to stay in the AI train too long. We got another thing.
Next stop. Woot woot.
Beep boop. So I want to show another thing in After Effects, just because be cognizant of the time. One of the things that I'm pretty jazzed about is...
I do have media intelligence though, so leaving time for that.
Yeah.
I'm hyped.
So this is an environment light. Now, if you've been doing things in the third dimension, then you're probably aware that if you make a thing, and we're using the advanced 3D mode over here, and you can put down what's called an environment light, and by default, it looks a little something like bonk, like that. So environment light, thank you.
Very default.
Yeah, pretty default lighting environment. But that's how you get shadows, self shadows and stuff like that going on with the light. In fact, the lighting environment looks pretty much the same except for the addition of shadows, right? But we could add an image. You could say, hey, let's use this fun image that will do the thing. But now, that image can move. This is a moving style image that is going to do the thing. So that could be a movie. It could be a composition. And in this case, we're going to use this composition here. So this environment light is going to be red, flashing red and blue lights. We're getting arrested for all of our thought crimes that we had earlier. And so all you got to do is point to the thing that you want. And I think the results here are pretty big fun because now we can essentially do kind of theatrical style lighting to our things. Now, before I would kind of jazz up things by just doing just like animating this, so you can just animate your environment light to like swirl around and to move, right? But now you can actually animate the light itself to like flash and flicker and do things. The other thing that's pretty fun is if you use footage, if the lighting situation of the footage changed, i.e. Kyle walked outside into the blazing sun from his hotel room, as happened last week, then that lighting situation, if you're using that to map around the lighting, that's going to be the new lighting world that the thing is in. So if you're thinking about like, oh, well, what's so exciting about that? Well, it means that the 3D objects that we put in and we use the environment light, that can actually be based on the footage itself. Let's keep the lights going.
If you shoot a 360 camera at your location, you could then place an object into that scene and use the actual real lighting conditions that were there on set and make it look very seamless.
Now, of course, you, the camera person, would be in that lighting situation.
Hey, listen. Presumably, you would shoot that, after you are done there being on set. But
exactly. Mirror ball that thing. An incredibly actually effective way of doing the thing. What's cool about the mirror ball technique, and this is something that's probably important to understand about the animated lights, the environment light is a sphere, right? So it is wrapping a sphere around things. That's why if you look at this, I'm trying to put lights, two lights in front of the object. This half is what's in front of the object. This half is what is behind the object. Imagine that this is wrapped around the object. So if you wanted something to be coming from the top of the object, if you were to put something up here, now it's the entire sky is red, and now it's the entire ground is a blue, and they're going to pop off like that when we come back here. And you can see fully above and fully below the thing, right? They are not rounded towards the front. Well, wait, which way was front? Oh yeah, front is here. This is front over on this side. So if I want it to be a little bit more, let's bring it down around the sphere a little bit, and you can see that, that's starting to pinch in.
Getting there.
We're getting there. So I'm gonna lock that composition. I'm gonna bring this over here. And I'm just going to just really quickly show you as I lower like that, and then I raise like that. So this hopefully gives you a little bit of an idea of the cool kind of lighting situation that you can do that you would have otherwise have been doing with, you would have been otherwise enjoying this with sort of like just doing a bunch of lights around, or maybe you'd be faking it, but it's a lot of fun because for title design and stuff like that, this is going to be, you're going to have a blast.
Some great possibilities. Even just literally lighting a piece of text. There's
Yeah.
great stuff there.
So Kyle, let's go back to your screen real quick for our finale.
Yeah. So let me show you two things because they're both fairly quick to demo. Another thing that's in here, which is also AI based, but this feels very useful if this is something you do. Okay, so I have that same clip right here. The guy just says one line, pretty easy. But let's say we need to caption that, right? So I'll quickly create some captions from that transcript. We'll just go default. You know, it's amazing. Okay, but you know what? We also need to sell Drip, this beverage product or whatever it is. We need to sell that in another country. Okay, so if you look right here, you can translate these captions using the power of AI, but very, very handy, right? So it knows that it's English already, and we just need to tell it a target language. You want to pick one for me here?
Portuguese. Let's get some Portuguese in there.
Okay. Brazilian or Portuguese?
Oh, Brazilian. We go Brazilian.
Okay. Brazilian.
I know we have Brazilian viewers.
Okay, so we'll just translate that real quick. See, it's creating a second caption track, and it's translating. And so by default, that is turned off, but you can just enable that, and I'll turn off the English ones. And so now here we go. It's obviously still in English, but now I've easily created those captions.
Ooh.
And I could do that for...
Real quick, because I know Umacorn's here. Is Dutch on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and just... I think I can just keep adding them here. So let's add Dutch.
Just do it again.
And you can tell us how accurate this is.
Yeah.
So there we go. It's creating another one here. So if you do anything where you need to create captions across multiple languages, you know, the product is called Drip. It's amazing. You know, pretty short thing, and you know, there's not a ton of context here, but Def Dutch we have from the chat. So yeah, there you go. It's that easy to create captions in another language, which is great. Here's the thing I'm super excited about. I have been talking about this for years, ever since, you know, people started getting hyped about AI. I was like, how about you actually make it useful for one of the things that is hardest for an editor, which is remembering everything you have.
Yeah.
And that now exists. So any piece of media that you have brought into your project, and this is a thing you can enable in preferences. It's kind of like when you bring in clips, do you want them to auto transcribe or do you want to manually do that? Kind of the same thing. You can tell it not to analyze stuff when you bring it in if you prefer. And just to prove to you that this works, I am going to bring in a bunch of random clips from Adobe stock that are on my hard drive. I don't even know what these are. I search for them. And so they're all here, but then we also had those demo assets. Over here in this search panel, which you can find by just going Window Search, you can now use this to look for anything.
Yeah, sorry, it just completed while you were talking, so it was like...
Yeah, exactly. It's super fast. So I can search for ice, and so I have this glacier and whatever this is. Okay, this isn't actually quite accurate. It's like some fruit, but I can see why it would think it was ice, and so that's okay. You can be pretty specific about this, like I don't know, astronaut in close-up. I didn't even complete it here. Okay, there you go. So I would say this is not a close-up, but this helps, you know, helps find that. What else do we have? Dancer, I saw. There we go. There's some clips. And this is a boxer, but I can see why, you know, that's close enough.
Yeah, the sweet science.
To literally be able to, you know, on a narrative project in particular, like, oh man, I forgot to label that one thing in my shots, like which shot has the salsa in it? And there it is, the salsa. And so you should absolutely still watch through your footage, and you should make, you know, label your clips and all that, but this now helps you remember those things without you needing to add like 50 little metadata tags to every single clip to remember that. Yeah. It's just in there.
Is the time on it the time it saw salsa, or just the length of the clip on there?
So it does actually. I won't pretend that I've used this a ton yet, but if a thing only exists at a certain part in the clip, yes, you can like then click on this and it will. So this one, it sees salsa in the entirety of the clip, so it sort of gives you that. But if a thing only existed for a short period, when you click on this, it would have trimmed an in and out
Oh,
to that portion of the clip that contains the thing that you searched for.
yeah, yeah. So for you people that just go like full open, capturing everything when you do your B-roll, finally you can stop hurting me. Okay,
exactly.
cool.
Like I don't know if any of these clips would actually be useful for that question, but I'm glad that you asked it because that's exactly how it works, and that's crazy.
Hey, filter through those 2 hours of shots that I took at the event. Well, I noticed you took one shot for 2 hours.
All right. Somewhere in there is that thing. And in fact, that is an excellent use case. So this can search for that for you and then find where it is. And then you could make a marker or a subclip or whatever. Yeah. Makes sense.
And speaking of, if you want to search for more Evan Abrams and Kyle Hamrick in the Motion Design Hotline, you would have seen up in the corner, we're usually on Wednesdays. So we're actually going to be at you next Wednesday, where we are going to get further into this nulls thing, this beautiful null thing coming up next week.
And we're at you every day, also on a Discord channel, which has been posted not too long ago, I think, maybe a little bit ago. There's a Discord for the whole Adobe Live, and you can find a Motion Design Hotline channel in there. But also get either of us on social media. Hit us up at motiondesignhotline.com for over 100 past episodes and project files and all that kind of good stuff.
So many. So I'm at EC Abrams. He's at Kylosaurus Rex. If you have problems in motion design and video, you let us know using the wonderful form at motiondesignhotline.com, a real website for real people. Till then, be kind to each other, and we'll stay creative, and we'll see you all around the internet.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.